Okay, but putting aside internal Labor politics here, in terms of the actual decision, I mean, the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, has said that she's deeply concerned by the Israeli government settlement activity. Do you share those concerns? I understand there is a lot of unease within the Jewish community here in Australia more broadly about various policies being pursued by the Israeli government. What do you make of the actual decisions that they're taking here?
Well, look, I'd make 2 points. Firstly, I consider settlements unhelpful to the realisation of a two-state solution, as do most people who support it. I've been opposed, and on the public record has been opposed to Israeli government settlement policy over many years. But I would say that, well, firstly, the Australian government choosing to characterise things one way or the other is not going to change the dynamics at all on the ground there. It's not going to make peace any more likely. And the use of the phrase, your use of other occupied territories is problematic in international law. Occupied presumes that there is another sovereign whose territory that particular land belongs to. Well, the previous sovereign over the West Bank and Gaza was the Ottoman Empire, which ceased to exist over 100 years ago. The right way to characterise these territories is disputed, and that's what the previous Australian government did.
Okay, so as you point out, this decision by the Australian government is not going to change anything in practical terms on the ground, but what does it actually mean for Australia in terms of our position on key UN motions? Does it mean boundaries will be recognised differently? What impact will it actually have?
Well, look, I suspect, like other decisions that the Australian government has made, this Australian government is going to affect our voting pattern at the UN and what had otherwise been our strong support for the State of Israel. I think, we've seen moves within the Labor Party to unilaterally recognise the Palestinian state. That's certainly the objective of some activists within the Labor Party and some senior Labor figures as well. I think just as we oppose unilateral moves on the ground by either Israel or the Palestinian Authority, I don't think Australia should be seeking to unilaterally impose a solution or determine boundaries, if you like, between an Israeli state and a future Palestinian state sitting here in Canberra. That's not our role. We should be supporting the side, supporting the peace process, but reaching conclusions as to how that ultimate peace process resolves itself and what the political boundaries look like is not the role of the Australian government at all.
More broadly, Dave, what is your view on the direction the Israeli government is taking on some of those more controversial moves around the judiciary, for example? Are you concerned by the direction that things are heading?
Look, I am concerned by the degree of polarisation you're seeing in Israel. These moves to reform the judiciary, as the government calls them, to nobble the judiciary, as its opponents would call them, are deeply contentious within Israel. There is a majority of support within this Knesset, that's true. 64 members of the Knesset voted for the first passage of these reforms, but the degree of civil society protest and outrage and opposition from business, academia, commercial, religious leaders as well shows you that this is a very divisive move. It's something akin to constitutional change, which you would normally seek a pretty broad mandate for. In Australia, you go to a referendum. In other countries, you might need a two-thirds majority in their parliament. But the fact that Israel's passing these laws with a bare majority in parliament and the degree of public opposition we've seen on the streets, I think is worrying, and it's tearing at the social fabric of Israel, no doubt about it.
Dave Sharma, always appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ash.